You think you can ruin my life and get away with it? Watch me destroy everything you ever cared about. Those were the words I heard before everything went dark. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed. The sterile white walls and the beeping of machines around me were a blunt reminder that something had gone wrong. Terribly wrong. It was my wedding anniversary, and I had planned a perfect evening, but all I had now were fragments of what felt like a shattered dream. "Mommy, are you awake?" Lily's small voice broke through my grogginess. I turned to see my little girl clutching a worn-out teddy bear, her eyes wide with worry. "Hey, sweetie," I managed to say, my throat dry and scratchy. "What's going on?" Before she could answer, Matt entered the room, his face a mask of concern. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I pushed it aside, trying to focus on the present. "Ava, thank God you're awake," he said, rushing to my side. His hand felt cold when he took mine, an odd contrast to the warmth of his words. "You had an accident. Do you remember anything?" I searched my mind, struggling to piece together the last moments before I blacked out, but there was nothing except a vague sense of panic and his voice echoing in my mind. "No, I don't remember," I admitted, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "Don't worry about it now," he said softly. "The doctors say you're going to be okay. You just need to rest." As he spoke, I noticed a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it guilt? Fear? I wasn't sure, but it made me wary. Days passed, and I was released from the hospital. Back home, I found it hard to settle back into my routine. The comfortable familiarity of our house felt strangely alien. I had hoped that Matt would be more attentive after the accident, but he was distant, always finding excuses to be away. Lily's innocent questions about my condition were the only things grounding me. One evening, I overheard Matt talking on the phone in hushed tones. "She doesn't suspect anything," he said, his voice a rough whisper. "We need to be more careful." I crept closer to the door, my heart racing. "Yeah, I know, she's still recovering." When he hung up, I confronted him. "Matt, who were you talking to?" He looked startled, then quickly composed himself. "Just work stuff, Ava. You need to rest." But his dismissive answer did nothing to ease my mind. There was something he wasn't telling me, and I needed to find out what it was. Searching for answers, I started paying closer attention to Matt's behavior. His late nights at the office, the guarded way he spoke on the phone, and how he avoided eye contact. Each odd detail added to my growing suspicion. "I missed you at the hospital, Becky," I said to my cousin a few days later, when she unexpectedly dropped by. She and Matt exchanged a quick glance before she responded. "I'm so sorry, Ava. I wanted to be there," she replied, squeezing my hand a bit too firmly. "It's fine," I said, though her smile didn't seem quite genuine. That night, my sleep was fitful. Fragments of conversations, half-hidden glances, and my own sense of dread swirled in my mind. My once perfect life seemed like a house of cards, ready to collapse at any moment. Dark clouds hovered over our anniversary party memory. I remembered dressed in my favorite red gown, the twinkling fairy lights, the taste of champagne, and then nothing. I needed to know what happened. I couldn't rest until I did. The next morning, I approached Matt as he was getting ready for work. "We need to talk," I said, determined. "Ava, not now. I'm already late," he said, brushing past me. As he left, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. The reflection staring back was a determined woman, ready to uncover the truth. The accident, Matt's strange behavior, and Becky's unease were all pieces of a puzzle I was determined to solve. If they thought they could get away with whatever they were hiding, they were sorely mistaken. The fight in me was reawakened. The whir of footsteps and hushed conversations around me filled the hospital room. I knew something was wrong, more than just my foggy memory. As the night deepened and Lily was finally asleep, I was left with my thoughts. I had to get to the bottom of this. It was around midnight when I heard voices outside my room. I recognized them immediately. Matt and Becky. I edged closer to the door, keeping it slightly ajar. "She'll never know." Becky's voice was sharp, almost taunting. "It's not like she would have noticed. She trusts you blindly." "You don't understand, Becky," Matt snapped. "She's starting to ask questions. We need to be careful." "What's the big deal, Matt? You're her husband. She'll never suspect you." My breath hitched. The betrayal was much deeper than I had imagined. Heart pounding, I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to listen, to gather more. "She doesn't remember anything from that night," Matt said, his voice lower now. "As long as we keep our cool, she'll be none the wiser. We just have to stick to our story." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband and my cousin in cahoots, dismissing me like a pawn in their game. As anger bubbled up inside me, a sense of clarity washed over. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I played my part, pretending everything was fine. "Matt, could you get me some water?" I asked sweetly as he lingered by my bedside. "Of course, Ava," he replied, masking his guilt behind a forced smile. As he left the room, I turned to Lily. "Sweetie, why don't you go with Daddy? I'll be right here." Once alone, I dialed Jenna's number. She answered on the second ring. "Jenna, I need your help. Something's wrong. I overheard Matt and Becky. They're hiding something from me." Jenna didn't ask any questions, simply said, "I'm on my way." Within the hour, Jenna was at my side. "Ava, are you sure about this?" "I've never been more certain," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "I need to find out what they're hiding, and I need your help." Jenna nodded. "We'll get to the bottom of this." Together, we hatched a plan. Jenna would start by following Becky, while I kept an eye on Matt's behavior. The idea of confronting them was shelved for now. Gathering evidence was priority. Jenna left just as Matt returned with Lily and a bottle of water. "Here you go, babe," he said, leaning in to kiss my forehead. I forced myself to smile, determined not to let my anger show. Days turned into weeks, and with Jenna's help, we began piecing things together. Subtle patterns became clearer. Matt's late-night calls, Becky's frequent visits, and the whispers I wasn't supposed to hear. The more we uncovered, the more I realized the depth of their deceit. One evening, as I lay in bed, pretending to sleep, I heard Matt on the phone again. "Yeah, she's still in the dark. Everything's going according to plan." Enough was enough. I couldn't pretend anymore, couldn't wait for more lies. The next morning, when Matt left for work, Jenna and I met to discuss our findings. "They're planning something bigger than just an affair," Jenna said, laying out the notes we had gathered. "Financial assets, maybe?" I nodded. "I need concrete proof. We need to catch them red-handed." We agreed to hire a private investigator, someone who could dig deeper than we could. As I shook Jenna's hand, I felt a renewed sense of determination. Matt and Becky thought they could betray me and get away with it. They were wrong. Very wrong. The storm was just beginning, and I was ready to face it head-on. The crisp autumn air bit at my skin as I stepped out of the car. The downtown office building where Dave operated was unassuming, almost easy to miss. But I had done my homework. Dave came highly recommended, a private investigator with a reputation for uncovering hidden truths. As I entered his office, a small bell tinkled above the door. The room was cluttered with files, a testament to the secrets he had already unearthed. Dave looked up from behind his desk, his sharp eyes assessing me instantly. "Ava, right?" he greeted, standing to shake my hand. "Have a seat. Your friend Jenna told me you'd be coming." I sat down, gripping the edge of the chair. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Dave. I need your help. My husband and my cousin... They're hiding something from me, and it's serious." He nodded, pulling out a notepad. "Tell me everything you know so far." I recounted the conversation I had overheard, Matt's late-night calls and Becky's suspicious visits. Dave listened intently, scribbling notes without interrupting. When I finished, he looked up, his expression thoughtful. "Infidelity is bad enough, but it sounds like there's more at play here," he said. "You want me to dig into their activities and find concrete evidence?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I need every shred of dirt. Make sure it's damning." Dave's eyes gleamed with a mix of empathy and determination. "Consider it done. I'll start by tailing Matt and Becky, checking phone records, financial transactions. It might take some time, but I'll get you what you need." Relief washed over me. "Thank you, Dave. This means a lot to me." As I left his office, a renewed sense of purpose filled me. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Days turned into weeks. Dave kept me updated with brief phone calls, each time hinting that he was getting closer. My interactions with Matt were filled with a tense politeness, masking the storm of emotions within me. His obliviousness fueled my resolve. One evening, as I was reading Lily a bedtime story, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Dave. "Got something big. Meet tomorrow?" My heart pounded. "Yes. Same place?" "Yes. Noon," he replied. The next day, I arrived at Dave's office, trying to steady my nerves. He greeted me with a grim expression. "I've found something," he said, leading me to a chair. He handed me a file. "It's not enough for a legal confrontation yet, but it's a start." Inside the file were photos of Matt and Becky meeting at various locations. Financial documents highlighted suspicious withdrawals and transfers. It was a pattern, one that hinted at something much darker than an affair. "What do you make of this?" I asked, flipping through the pages. "They're laundering money through a fake investment scheme," Dave explained. And if my sources are correct, they're planning to pin the blame on you. Rage coursed through me. They're using me as a scapegoat? Dave nodded, his face stern. It looks that way, but don't worry, I'll keep digging. We need more solid evidence before we can go to the authorities. I clenched my fists. Do whatever it takes, I want them to pay for this. As I left, Jenna called. How did it go? Well, I said, filling her in on the details. But we need more proof before we can strike. We're in this together, Ava, she assured me. Whatever you need. Hanging up, I felt a surge of determination. Matt and Becky had underestimated me. They thought they could ruin my life and get away with it. They were wrong. The first steps of my revenge were set in motion, and there was no turning back now. I'm going to a conference out of town. I'll be back in a few days, I announced over breakfast. Matt barely looked up from his phone, mumbling an acknowledgement. Becky wasn't at the house today, which made it easier to plant the seeds of my plan. Lily, blissfully unaware of the tension, was excited. Can I come with you, Mommy? I put on my best reassuring smile. Not this time, sweetheart. But I promise we'll have our own adventure soon. When Matt left for work, I got busy. I retrieved the small hidden camera from a drawer and carefully installed it in the living room. One in the kitchen, another in the bedroom, places they wouldn't think to check. The anticipation was almost electric. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a storm, ready to let it loose. After setting up everything, I called Jenna. We're ready. I'm heading to my conference. Be safe, Ava, Jenna said, her voice filled with support. You've got this. I packed my bags, kissed Lily goodbye, and left the house, my heart pounding. I drove to a nearby hotel and checked in under a different name. Then I set up my laptop, connecting to the live feed from the cameras. Hours passed. My fingers drummed against the desk as I watched the empty rooms on the screen. The waiting was torture, but I knew this was the only way to catch them. Just when I began to wonder if this was all for nothing, movement flickered on the screen. Matt entered the living room, followed closely by Becky. Their faces were tense, lips drawn in tight lines. They sat close to each other, too close. We need to talk about the next step, Becky said, her voice cold. She's starting to get suspicious. As long as we stay calm, she won't find out, Matt responded. We just need to keep up appearances until everything is finalized. Becky scoffed. Appearances won't matter if she finds out we're planning to take over her finances. My stomach churned. They were discussing their betrayal so casually, like they planned a weekend getaway. I've taken care of the necessary documents, Matt said, flipping through some papers. Once she's out of the picture, everything falls to me legally. The camera caught Becky's grin. Perfect. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. I felt a wave of disgust. They were planning to destroy my life and take everything from me. But now I had the proof. I just needed more details to ensure their downfall. Hours later, they left, and I closed the laptop, my mind spinning. I called Jenna immediately. We've got them. They're planning to take over everything, my finances, my assets. They've already started the paperwork. Jenna's response was quick. Let's make sure we have all the evidence. Keep gathering until we have enough to bury them both. The next few days followed a similar pattern. I monitored the cameras, and Matt and Becky continued their vile charade, completely oblivious to the fact that I was watching their every move. The more I saw, the clearer the picture became. When the weekend ended, I returned home, greeting Matt and Lily with a smile that felt like a mask. My anger was a fire that burned hotter every time I looked at the man I once trusted. But revenge was a dish best served cold, and I was preparing the perfect storm. Taking a deep breath, I reflected on the days ahead. This was just the beginning. They thought they had outsmarted me, but they were wrong. Very wrong. The game was far from over. In fact, it had just begun. Nestled in my cover at a neighbor's house, I stared at the live footage from my hidden cameras, my nerves taut as a bowstring. The evening light bathed the suburban streets in an orange glow, a stark contrast to the darkness brewing inside my home. Matt and Becky were sitting in the living room, closer than ever. They pored over documents, their expressions intense. We need to move faster, Becky urged, her voice sharp. Ava's getting too comfortable. If she catches on, our plan could fail. Relax, Becky, Matt said, though his voice carried a hint of unease. The accounts are almost fully transferred. We only need a few more days. I felt my anger boiling just beneath the surface. Matt, the man I once trusted with my life, was calmly discussing robbing me of everything I held dear. Then Becky leaned in closer, her eyes glinting maliciously. Once she's out of the picture, you'll have control of everything. Finances, property, even custody of Lily. Matt smirked. We'll be untouchable. He took a sip from his glass, looking triumphant. Have you made sure the evidence against her is solid? Becky asked, tapping the stack of papers between them. Matt nodded. Without a doubt, she won't just lose her assets, she'll lose her reputation. No one will believe her side of the story if we play this right. My stomach churned at their casual cruelty, but I forced my breathing to stay steady. I had enough now, but I wanted irrevocable proof. I waited, my eyes never leaving the screen. Hours ticked by before Matt and Becky stood up, hugging each other as if they were partners in some grand heist. They moved to the bedroom, and out of the camera's view, laughter and whispers filling the air. The timestamps recorded every movement, every vile act of betrayal. The next morning, I contacted Dave. I've got solid evidence. They're trying to frame me for financial fraud and steal everything, even Lily. Good work, Dave said. Let's meet and compile everything. We'll need a precise strategy to take them down. At his office, we spread out all the collected evidence. Photographs, the recording footage, the financial documents they had manipulated. Dave's sharp eyes scanned everything. This is more than enough. They've dug their own graves with this. So what's the next step? I asked, determination clear in my voice. We take this to Laura, your lawyer. We need to secure your assets and involve the police. I nodded. We move today. Later, at Laura's office, we laid out the evidence. She studied it with a mix of shock and admiration. You did well, Ava. This is airtight. We'll file the necessary legal motions immediately. Hours later, dressed in disguises, Jenna and I watched from a distance as police raided my house. Matt and Becky's confusion turned to panic as officers shoved past them, gathering documents and confiscating electronics. What's going on? Matt shouted, a mix of fear and fury in his voice. You're under investigation for fraud and conspiracy, an officer stated flatly. We have a warrant to search the premises. Becky's face turned white. This has to be a mistake. You can't do this. I watched, feeling a grim satisfaction. They were finally facing the consequences of their actions. Back at Jenna's, I took a deep breath, the weight of the past few weeks lifting slightly. This was just the beginning of their downfall. But for now, I allowed myself a moment of relief. They really thought they could take everything from you, Jenna said, her voice laced with disgust. They underestimated me, I replied confidently, for perhaps the first time since this all started. And they'll pay for every single thing. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but I was no longer the passive victim. I was ready to reclaim my life and protect what was rightfully mine. The storm had begun, and I was at its center, stronger than ever. The evidence was ironclad, and now it was time to confront Matt and Becky face to face. I waited in the living room, the documents and surveillance footage spread out on the coffee table. Every second felt like an eternity, but I kept my breathing steady and my resolve ironclad. When Matt and Becky finally walked in, their faces fell seeing me back so soon. Ava, what are you doing here? Matt asked, trying to mask his surprise. I think it's time we had a talk, I said, my voice calm but firm. All of us. Becky shifted uneasily. Is everything okay? No, Becky, everything is far from okay, I replied, placing my laptop on the table and hitting play. The footage of their conversations filled the room, their voices echoing through the space with undeniable clarity. Matt's face turned ghostly white. What the hell is this? This, I said, stepping closer, is proof of your betrayal, both of you, discussing how to ruin my life, steal my assets, and take custody of Lily. Becky's face twisted in anger. You set us up! I made sure the truth came out, I said coldly. You didn't just break my heart. You tried to ruin my life. Now, you're going to pay for it. Matt's facade of concern crumbled, replaced by rage. You think you can take us down with this? You won't get away with it. Oh, but I already have, I replied, lifting a thick stack of papers. These are the legal filings, ensuring everything you've done is now in the hands of the authorities. Your bank fraud, your fake investments, your conspiracy, it's all there. You bitch, Becky screamed, lunging at me. I stepped back, but before she could get any closer, 2 police officers entered the room. Rebecca, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and other charges, the officer announced, stepping forward to handcuff her. As they led Becky away, she spat venom. You'll pay for this, Ava. You'll regret ever crossing me. I watched her without flinching, my eyes cold and unmoved. Then I turned back to Matt. And as for you, Matt's bravado flickered as another officer approached him. Matthew, you're also under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and theft. You can't do this, Matt roared as they handcuffed him. This is my house, my family. No, Matt, I said, stepping closer until I was inches from his face. This was our family. You destroyed that, remember? You'll never have the power to hurt me or anyone else again. The officers took Matt away, his curses fading as they left the house. For the first time in weeks, I felt a heavy weight lifting from my chest. Jenna came in a few moments later, having heard the commotion from outside. Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied, more determined than ever. This had to be done. Now it's time to start picking up the pieces. She nodded, her eyes filled with pride and sympathy. You did it, Ava. You took them down. Watching the empty room, I took a deep breath. The path ahead was still long, and there would be more battles to fight, but I wasn't alone. We're not done yet, Jenna. There's still a lot to do, I said, glancing at the scattered evidence on the table. But one thing's for sure, they won't get away with this. Together we began to gather the pieces of my shattered life, ready to rebuild and move forward. The storm had passed, but the journey to healing had just begun. And as I looked at the remnants of Matt and Becky's treachery, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was stronger than ever before. The courtroom was silent, except for the shuffling of papers and the low murmur of lawyers conversing quietly. I sat at the front, shoulders squared, head held high. Matt sat across from me, his gaze darting around nervously. The polished exterior he usually wore was cracking, revealing the anxiety beneath. Today was the day everything would unravel for him. The judge entered, and the room rose. You may be seated, she said, her voice firm. Laura stood, addressing the court. Your Honor, we have irrefutable evidence that the defendants, Matthew and Rebecca, engaged in fraudulent activity with the intent to deprive my client, Ava, of her rightful assets and reputation. She proceeded to present the evidence, the footage, the documents, the bank statements. Each piece was a nail in Matt's proverbial coffin. I watched him closely, noting the way his face paled with each revelation, the way Becky, seated next to him, fidgeted uncomfortably. Your Honor, I'd like to call Ava to the stand, Laura said. I walked up, feeling the weight of the room's eyes on me. Taking a deep breath, I swore the oath and sat down. Laura approached me. Ava, can you describe the events that led to this court case? I recounted everything. The accident, my suspicions, the hidden cameras, the night I overheard their plan. My voice didn't waver as I spoke. And why did you decide to take these steps? Laura asked. Because they didn't just betray me personally, I said, looking directly at Matt. They tried to destroy my entire life. They underestimated me, thought I'd just disappear. But here I am. There were no further questions, and I returned to my seat. Matt's lawyer was next, trying to paint the actions as misunderstandings or unfortunate coincidences. But the evidence was too strong to refute. Each argument weakened under the scrutiny of the blatant facts. Finally, Matt was called to the stand. His lawyer guided him through rehearsed answers, but his guilt was glaringly obvious. You have to believe me, Your Honor. I was manipulated. I never intended for any harm to come to Ava, Matt said, his voice shaky. Then how do you explain the evidence? The judge asked, raising an eyebrow. Matt faltered, looking lost. I didn't realize what Becky was planning. I was just following. The defendant's blatant lies, Laura interjected. But the evidence speaks for itself. The judge took her time reviewing everything, her face stern and unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. The court finds the defendants guilty of fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and theft. Sentencing will follow after further hearings. A murmur ran through the courtroom as the weight of the verdict settled. Matt's face was ashen, his bravado gone. Becky was led away in handcuffs, muttering curses under her breath. As Matt was escorted out, I caught his eye one last time. You'll never have the power to hurt me or anyone else again. Outside, Jenna was waiting. Her face lit up when she saw me. It's over. You did it. I couldn't have done it without you, I replied, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. Let's go. I need to see Lily. Returning home, I found Lily waiting, her innocent smile a beacon of hope. Mommy, you're back. I'm here, sweetheart, I said, hugging her tightly. And we're going to be okay. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, I took a moment to reflect on the journey. There was still fallout to deal with, still wounds to heal. But we'd faced the storm and come out stronger. At last, I allowed myself to breathe deeply, knowing that while the path ahead might still have challenges, the worst was behind us. And in that moment, holding my daughter and feeling the warmth of our home, I felt the first stirrings of peace. The struggle had been fierce. But I had reclaimed our lives. Matt and Becky were no longer a threat, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. The first few weeks after the court ruling were a whirlwind of paperwork and loose ends. Matt and Becky were both incarcerated, awaiting further sentencing. Lily and I tried to find a new normal amidst the upheaval. One sunny morning, as I packed the last box for our move, Lily ran into the room clutching her teddy bear. "Mommy, are we really moving to a new house?" I smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart. It's a fresh start for us. A new beginning." The new house wasn't far, just a few towns over, but it represented a world of difference, a place where Matt's shadow didn't linger in every corner. The vibrant community and welcoming neighbors felt like the perfect place to rebuild. Our first visitor was Jenna, carrying a housewarming plant. "Hey, how are my favorite girls settling in?" she asked, stepping inside with a wide grin. "We're doing great, one box at a time," I laughed, hugging her. Jenna glanced around the living room. "This place is wonderful, Ava. It already feels like home." I nodded, feeling the truth of her words. It does. And this time it's our home, just Lily and me. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, I stepped out onto the porch, Jenna joining me. The cool air felt refreshing after the chaos of the past months. "So what's next?" Jenna asked, leaning against the railing. "Stabilizing, healing, moving forward," I said, my voice steady. "I want a life for Lily where she feels safe and loved, and maybe one day I'll allow myself to trust again." Jenna placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You've come so far, Ava, and you're not alone. You have friends who care about you." A few weeks later, as we settled into our routine, I received a letter from Laura. Matt's trial was over. He was sentenced to 8 years for his crimes. Becky faced 5 years for her involvement. The news brought a sense of closure, allowing me to finally breathe easier. At dinner that evening, I looked across the table at Lily. Her smile was brighter, her laughter more frequent. "How's school, sweetie?" "It's great, Mommy. I made a new friend today. Her name's Sophie," she beamed. "That's wonderful, Lily. I'm so proud of you." Later that night, I sat down with an old scrapbook, flipping through pages of memories. Despite the pain caused by Matt and Becky, these moments with Lily were precious. I realized that the trauma had made us stronger, brought us closer together. One Sunday, Jenna invited us to a barbecue at her place. The backyard was filled with laughter and the delicious smell of grilled food. I watched Lily play with other kids, her happiness radiating. It was a stark contrast to the isolation we'd felt before. As the evening drew to a close, a man approached and introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Alex, a friend of Jenna's. She's told me a lot about you." Smiling, I shook his hand. "Nice to meet you, Alex. Enjoying the barbecue?" "Yes, it's been great. Jenna throws a good party, doesn't she?" he said with a chuckle. "She mentioned you and your daughter went through quite an ordeal." I nodded, the shadows of the past briefly clouding my mind. "We did, but we're stronger now. We're moving forward." Alex's eyes were kind, understanding. "Well, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. It's always good to have a strong community around you." That night, after tucking Lily into bed, I reflected on Alex's words. Trust was hard to build again, but maybe it was possible. Maybe there were still good people out there, people who wouldn't betray us. I kissed Lily on the forehead and whispered, "We're stronger now, Lily. No one can break us again." As I turned off the light and left the room, a sense of peace washed over me. Our future was still unwritten, but it was ours to shape. With each passing day, I felt more certain that we were on the path to a brighter tomorrow.